Welcome to the program. For years, Australian households have been encouraged to install solar panels for the sake of the environment and to save money. Hundreds of thousands of people have jumped on board, some of them even making money by selling surplus energy back into the electricity grid. But a controversial proposed rule change might see that come to an end and enable energy companies to actually charge solar panel owners to export their own electricity. Nadia Daly reports.
We wanted to get solar panels for a long time, just to try and save $1. The main key, if I could have saved $300-400 a year, that would have been awesome. He's going.
Last month, plumber Matt Pillsbury installed solar panels on his home, hoping it would not just save him money, but help him make some too.
We thought we'd put a good system in and try and save some money, pay for a holiday or who knows what else.
For more than a decade, solar panel owners have been offered what's called a feed-in tariff, which means they get paid for the surplus energy they send to the grid. But with so much cheap solar power being pumped back into the grid, many households are no longer being paid for their excess power. Matt soon found out his was one of them.
We found out that we couldn't pump back into the grid, so we couldn't get any money back. Yeah, it sort of backfired a little bit. It was sort of $8,500 and I'm not getting anything back. I've just been pumping energy back into the grid for free and not saving a single dollar.
Australians have this love affair with solar.
Australia has one of the highest uptakes of household solar in the world. It's skyrocketed from just 0.2% of households in 2007 to 20% now. And in a decade, 50% of us are predicted to have solar panels. But that growing popularity has come at a price.
The grid, the poles and wires, was set up to get power from generators to your house, not from your house back into the grid.
The Australian Energy Market Commission, the expert group that sets the rules for the electricity grid, says it's now being flooded with more power than it was designed to handle, making the network unstable and raising the risk of future blackouts. Ben Barr is the Commission's chief executive.
We're seeing it in South Australia where, to keep the system stable, the grid operator is looking at times, turning off customers' solar PV on their houses. And if that happens, they can't earn any money. At the moment, the only way of solving this problem is actually building more and more poles and wires, which everybody pays for.
That's why the Australian Energy Market Commission is proposing radical reforms to pricing. The changes would mean electricity companies could actually charge solar owners to export energy to the grid when it's busy, as opposed to paying them for it. But companies will still offer payment for solar power when more energy is needed on the grid.
And by that, you allow this two-way pricing and incentives for when the power is needed. Charge up, in the middle of the day when your solar is generating, and get it back into the grid at night or at 6 p.m. when the grid needs it.
The economics of what they are proposing is not reasonable. It's not in the public interest.
Economist Bruce Mountain believes large energy companies should be doing more to help pay for upgrades to the grid, instead of punishing solar users.
They installed solar in good faith with governments, both state and federal, that encourage them to. They, in most cases, have funded almost all or a large part of the investment themselves. For governments now, to tax them on it is to expropriate part of the value of investments that they made in good faith. And I think they will rightly be angry about it.
But the proposal has been backed by welfare groups, including the Australian Council of Social Services.
What the Australian Bureau of Statistics shows is that it's still mainly people with the highest wealth that have more solar. So in other words, people that have more assets, like owning a home, whereas people who are renters don't get access to solar.
The Energy Market Commission says its modelling shows the 80% of households who don't have solar could expect to see a reduction in their electricity bills of around $15 per year as a result of the new solar charges.
So those that benefit the most will pay more, and those that benefit the least because they don't use energy exports will pay less.
When it comes to my average weekly budget, Electricity is quite often what is, I guess, shoved to the background, paid last, pay what we can.
Bradley Stanton in Nowra works a few hours each week and is on Job Seeker. It's a weekly struggle to make ends meet and pay the bills.
We don't wash our clothes with hot water. We don't use our heater or air conditioner when it's really hot or really cold. We do whatever we can to limit the electricity use.
Bradley supports solar and green energy. He's even planning to run as a Greens candidate for the local Shoalhaven Council later this year. But he says installing rooftop solar is still prohibitively expensive.
Well, I'd love to have solar panels, I really would. I'd be the first to take them if I could afford them. I'd love to be contributing, but unfortunately I can't afford it, and I feel like that I really am paying a lot more than what I should be for my electricity.
The Energy Market Commission argues its proposal will not be a big financial hit on those who can afford solar panels. They estimate returns for a medium-sized house will drop from $970 a year to $900.
You get a good return from solar, and it's not going to, make it uneconomic for customers to put it on their roof.
But in an independent analysis prepared exclusively for 730, Professor Bruce Mountain disputes the Commission's figures and says the cost to solar users will be greater than predicted. He claims the average Victorian household's return on solar exports will instead drop from $129 per year to just $29, and he believes it could be worse in other states.
Essentially, they will get the equivalent of a hamburger a year as their income from rooftop solar sales. I think that's very likely to bring pressure in the rooftop solar market, and customers will be less interested in it.
I don't think that's right. I mean, and I think really importantly, we've modelled a range of options in that report. And so it's not a blanket one-size-fits charge that's going to apply across the system.
The AEMC says any changes are at least 4 years off, and the support of state governments is needed before the proposed rules become a reality.
I think if these proposals take effect, I think it's very likely that much fewer people will install rooftop solar. It will kill the golden goose.
What are you doing?
If you'd known that you couldn't sell it back to the grid before you'd installed it, would you still have gone ahead?
Probably not, no. The only thing that I've sort of thought of now is just going to cost me more money is to put a battery in where I get to keep the energy and save it, but it's just a little bit out of the cost range at the minute.